Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me today. We're going to be talking about the ribbon embroidery accessory and how you can use it to be more creative with your sewing. And we're going to wait as a few people join us. Remember, today, this is a free Facebook Live. So make sure that you ignore any messages that you see asking for you to put in any personal information on the Facebook comments page. And this is being recorded, so you will be able to watch it after. And please make sure that if you've got any questions that you type them in the comments, and I'm going to stop on a regular basis and ask you about trying to answer some of those questions. And so people are starting to come in now. So I'm just going to get started. And if you have never heard about the ribbon embroidery accessory, I have it right here in front of me, and I will show you a lot more detail about how to use it. But also know that there is a video that I made that is complete from the very beginning, using it, putting it on, the kinds of design you're going to use, and how you take it off. And it is I think it's a well done video. So don't worry about the little minute details of things when it comes to that, because if you watch the video that I showed you how setting it all up and putting it on, I think you'll find that that's going to be really helpful. So I'm not going to cover some of those things today, because I want to make sure that we have enough time for the creative fun stuff. And when I first used it, one of the very first designs that I ever used the ribbon embroidery attachment for was a design that I did on this black knit shirt. And you're not going to see it too much because it's a tone-on-tone black. And I used a satin ribbon. So it's kind of there, and you'll see the definition of it, but you're not seeing it really stand out as being very, bold. And the reason I did this was my very first one, and this is a really, really stretchy knit, and I wasn't sure how it was going to work on a stretchy knit, and it worked fine. And more than that, when I washed it, every time I washed it, the ribbon got more and more beautiful. I know you can't see a lot of detail for it because of it being tone on tone, but sometimes you want to be a little more subtle about what you're doing. So that was my way of getting started with the ribbon embroidery attachment. And I love using it, and I've started to be a lot more creative. So I'm going to show you not only how you can incorporate ribbon embroideries into the embroideries you're doing, but how you can make your own in MySonet embroidery. And I'm going to show you a real simple example of some things that you can do. So I thought I might start with that. I'm going to switch the camera and go over to a picture of something that I've just been working on. Now, to give you an idea of the size, this pumpkin, you can see my hand, the pumpkin's pretty big. And I've got a purple cone flower, and these are really fanciful flowers that you're seeing here. And then I have another daisy type of flower over here. And I love putting things together in this collage type of thing. I'm making just kind of like a border quilt where it's going to be long, wide, and it's not going to be so high. And I'm going to put a lot of creative things in there. There's going to be butterflies, and by the time I'm done, it is going to look like a painting because I've incorporated a lot of different images into it. Now, to start with, if I wanted to add some grass, I might find an embroidery design that is in my MySonet library that would work just fine for it. But because I have MySonet embroidery and I have the platinum version of it, I can make my own ribbon embroidery designs very, very easily. So I'm going to switch to my computer for a moment and just show you how easy it is to do that. And this is the screen that I've just brought in a couple of flowers to kind of show you what I'm talking about. So these are regular embroidery designs, and I would like to make some ribbon embroidery grass to go along with it. Now, if you have MySonet embroidery, the platinum version, if you look upon the top, there is icons that are showing up, and you can see my mouse is going here. What I'm looking for is the embellish option. So when I go to embellish, it will give me options not only to add ribbon embroidery designs. There are many designs that are already pre-created and super designs in here, and they're just part of the program. There's animals, climate. You'll see quite a few different varieties of things. Hearts. I love this heart with the wings. That's really adorable on a jacket. Because they're super designs, you can change the size to anything you'd like. So I'm not going to choose one of those super designs. I'm going to go and make my own. And so it is unbelievably simple to do it. I'm going to go to the draw line, and I'm going to choose freehand line. And then I get a chance to choose the color that I want. I'm going to choose a green, and I can choose the size of ribbon that I want to use. And I'm going to choose 5mm. And when I say okay, I will get a pen. And all I have to do is with my mouse, and I'm just using a freehand draw tool here. I don't have any mouse attached, but I probably could have done that if I wanted to. And I can just draw the grass. And you can see how quickly I'm doing this. I'm basically using this like a pen. And when I let it go, I will have a brand new ribbon embroidery design. There it is. Isn't that amazing? It is so easy to do. Now, the fun thing about something like this is I could add a ribbon embroidery to a flower, to the butterflies. I could add it to the stem. I could take it in and make a brand new design. And you don't need to be an artist to do this, but it's so, so simple. And what happens is when you save this design, the ribbon embroidery will move to the last color. So that will always be the last color. So you'll do the rest of the embroidery, and then you will stitch out it'll tell you put on the ribbon embroidery accessory, and then it will stitch out that last color. So this was just a simple kind of fun thing that I've been working with recently. And the one that I did before that is this tree. And I'm going to go back over to the camera and show you this tree that I've been working on. And this was a very fun design, especially because it was so simple. Now, the tree trunk is a ribbon embroidery design that already exists in the MySonet library. And when I brought that up and I looked at it, I thought, now what can I do with that? That is just so pretty. And I originally thought that I might use it as a family tree where I could put hanging ovals or leaf shapes that would be hanging from the tree, and I could make them so that they were not permanent, so that they would hang either on a buttonhole or they could hang in some different ways. And then I decided I was just going to add this kind of seasonal fabric behind it. And I got the idea because I had this yardage of fabric that just had this print on it. So when you look at that, it had these big circles, and it was a fabric that I bought maybe 6 months ago. And at the time I thought, what am I going to do with that? And I had no idea. And it's got little butterflies and some flowers and all kinds of funky things in there. And so I thought, that's going to be perfect to put behind the tree. Let me get that out of there. And so I had a white piece of fabric for the background. I cut out the shape of the flowers and the background fabric, and I fused a Misty Fuse behind it. I wanted it to be very, very light because I wanted to quilt it. But usually what I use is a stick and fuse too. The design was placed here, and then I loaded the ribbon embroidery design where the tree was. And I used a very narrow ribbon. In this case, I used an 1/8 inch ribbon because I really wanted the emphasis to be on the branches. And if I used a big, wider ribbon, like a 1/4 inch or 1/2 inch, what would have happened is it would have taken over the tree, and I wouldn't have got the same detail for all the branches. And then after that was done, I wanted the trunk to be colored in. So I have a wide variety of fabric markers. Some of them are opaque and some of them are translucent. Some of them are metallic, and I just play around with it. So I use that to color in the trunk. And you can see, if you look right here, you'll see the color of the fabric showing through a little bit. I didn't bother to change that. I just colored it in that brownie gray color. And then the very last thing I did was take an ink pen that's meant for fabric. This one was by Inktense, but I've used other ones. Sukaneko ink has got some nice fabric markers, and they're a lot, very well and easily available. And then I just simply drew a green line across. And then I came back and added a little bit more color, and that's all I did. And then I spritzed it with water, and the green just kind of spread in that way. And it was just so easy. I really didn't work at it. I didn't have to take a brush and do a lot of detailed work, but it added a lot more to the picture that I was doing. Oh, somebody sees the hummingbird piece in the back. That hummingbird picture was one that I did many moons ago, and I was bringing it out for a project that I did. So that was one of my very first pieces that I quilted. Okay, so, and I will try and answer your questions as I go. So by all means, let me know if it's, especially if it's on topic, let me know what questions you have about what I'm doing. So I think sometimes when we look at a ribbon embroidery design, we don't always understand what kind of ideas we can do with them, because you don't see fabric behind them, and you don't get a really good idea of how to use it in a three-dimensional way. So I'm going to pull that away. Now, many of you have seen this lion embroidery design, and this one was a ribbon embroidery, and first you started with embroidering the face, and then afterwards you come back and you add the ribbon. I just took a little detour when I did this, because instead of putting ribbon on both sides of the face, I added applique flowers. And what I want to show you about, because I think this is one of the most important things to understand, is how you can add an applique to all of the ribbon embroidery designs so that you can see them well and understand how to use them. And I'm going to do that on the machine. I'm going to go over and show you that in a moment. But I wanted to kind of give you an idea of what kinds of fabrics that I used when I was creating these appliques. Here's an example of another one that I'm doing. And this one, you can see I haven't added any ribbon yet, but I've started to add all the flowers. The kinds of fabrics that I look for are fabrics that kind of have a border fabric like this that's got a print with some large flowers in it. What I like about this type of fabric is you don't have to cut up all of the fabric all over. You can just cut this one row out and it'll be done. Here's another example of the one that I used on my very first lion that I did. And you can see this one, I've been regularly cutting them out. This was another border fabric, and I just went and cut the sunflowers out as I was using them. So you don't need to necessarily go out and buy new fabrics. You may have these fabrics in your stash if you want to do it. The important thing is knowing how you can use this design to create an applique. And so I'm going to pull this out, this one too. And then this is a completely different off-the-wall lion that I did change the colors up completely. There I've used purples and reds and greens, and I used a yarn instead of a ribbon for this. And you have a lot of leeway when it comes to using different ribbons. You're allowed to go from 1/8 of an inch to 5/8 of an inch. But if a ribbon is very, very thin, like this yarn is very thin, especially because the outside edges are fringed like that, this worked very, very well to do it. I don't necessarily love the end result. It's a bit maybe bolder than I wanted. And the lime green showed up so much that I really didn't like the lime green there. So I took a fabric marker and just colored it in a little greener so that it would be a little less in your face. But you can kind of see how many different ways you can do the same design. So I'm going to pull this away. And I'm going to show you one more design that I did in applique. Now, this type of thing is not everybody's piece of cake. It is a skeleton or a skull. I generally don't do anything with this, but I just thought the idea was so beautiful. And a friend of mine, Carrie Philpott, did one, and I just thought it was just gorgeous. And so I had to do it. And I used this kind of mottled background that was bright and bold. But I think something like this could look good on a denim jacket. You know, if you have a grandchild or, you know, somebody you wanted to do something really different for, back of a denim jacket, this could be really effective. What I used in the background was the heat transfer vinyl that they use for the electronic cutters. And I don't think you can really get a good view of it. It's holographic. So it really just, it glitters like you wouldn't believe. But this was the very first time that I used multiple colors of ribbon embroidery all at the same time. So as I was doing it, it would do one color and then stop, and then I would add the next color. And I, in the beginning, thought, well, I wonder how many people would want to do that. I was amazed at how quickly it went, because the actual ribbon stitches out very quickly. And it was, you know, it was great practice to put it on and take it off again. So I thought, even though it is not my normal cup of tea, I was really happy with the way that turned out. Okay, so I'm going to come back over here for a minute and just check and see if there's any questions. Doesn't seem like it so far. And so when you're evaluating what ribbon is going to work for you, you really want to think about how strong you want it to show up. Now, this heart was a simple heart. This was the same with the satin ribbon that I used on that black shirt at the beginning. And I was kind of running out of ribbon, and I saw somebody else put 2 tones of ribbon in. So I didn't have enough to do it all in the pink. So I stopped it at a certain point and then changed the color and put the other color on there. And just for the effect, it turned out pretty good. And I was kind of happy with that. So we'll pull that down. I'm just going to come down here and see if I can train things. So when you're looking at the kinds of ribbon that you can use, if you want the attention to be on the background of whatever it is, I'm going to show you an elephant in a little bit that I used a black 1/8 inch ribbon, and that turned out really well because it really put the attention on the elephant. So a lot of times I will use the very narrow 1/8 inch ribbon, and when I'll show you how to set it up and how to put it on. But if I'm doing flowers or something that I want it to be soft and fuzzy and fun looking, then I might do something like this. This is a yarn, and you buy it from a yarn store, and you can see it's not very thick, but when you were knitting with it, this would be considered yarn you would knit with. But for my purposes, it's just as much like a ribbon as it is a yarn. Now, somebody asked, can the ribbon embroidery designs be stitched as couching? So basically, that's what you're doing with the ribbon embroidery unit, right? So when you have your ribbon embroidery attachment, I'm going to just lift this hinge up right here on the side, and I'm going to take this ring out, and I'm going to put the yarn that I'm using on here. So the yarn goes on this is like a spool. The yarn or the ribbon goes on here, whatever it is you're using, in exactly the same way. Terry, I don't know what brand of yarn I'm using. I just go and I haunt the yarn stores, and I look at all the craft stores, and when I find something that appeals to me, I check it out. This one that was fuzzy, I think I got this one online, and I ordered it. I thought I ordered 2 different colorways, but it came in that it was both the same. But you can kind of see it looks like it's pre-dyed. So, you know, if you're used to kind of not thinking outside the box, you might not have think about doing this. But it is important when you're trying something new that you haven't done before to kind of just give it a try, right? Find a simple design and try it and see whether you like it. One of the other things that I love about ribbon embroidery designs is they're very, very simple. It's a straight stitch that's couching down the yarn. And so if you don't like it, it comes out very easily. There's many times I've done something and I thought, you know, I just don't like it. And so I take it off and put it back on again. And it really is very, very easy to do. And I'll show you a couple of examples of what the back looks like, and you'll kind of recognize how easy it would be to take it up. So if I was using this yarn, what I would do is there's a little black door there that I would open up, and then I'm going to put the end of it in. And I would do the same thing no matter what yarn it was, whether it's a satin ribbon that's 1/4 of an inch or 5/8 of an inch, or whether it's, you know, the 1/8 inch ribbon, whether it's the organza ribbon. There's all of these different kinds of ribbons that you can use, and the process is exactly the same. So all I'm doing is putting it on exactly almost like the way a bobbin would be wound, right? It's going only in one direction. And the main difference is if you're putting on something like an 1/8 inch ribbon, you would see that you could get maybe 15 yards on here, or 20 yards. Whereas the yarn that's a little bit thicker and heavier is going to not put as much on. So I might only get, you know, 6 feet on here. And I just cut this piece so that you can see how it goes on. And then once it's done, if you pick up the ribbon embroidery attachment, you'll see the black clip down here. That is what I lifted to take this off. When I put it in, I'm going to put it in the same way. Wait a second, I got to lift it up first. Sorry about that. And then this ribbon, the end of this ribbon, let me take that out again. I usually leave it in my box when I'm doing this because it's easier. But I'm going to turn it around like this so you can see it better. Okay, so I'm ready to put it in, and I put it in, and then I bring the tail through the opening slot that is on the left of that lever. And then to lock it in place, you just push the lever down, and now it's locked in place. And at that point, we're going to turn it upside down to get it set up. And remember, I did make a really good video so you can see close-ups of how to do this. So, and I'm going to turn it over, and the slots that you're going to put this tail in are going to be right there next to the ribbon. And the biggest mistake most people make is that when you're putting it in there, you don't leave a long enough tail hanging off the end. And so somebody asked the question is, does it matter which way you wind it? And the answer is yes. But the lovely thing about the way that this is made, and I'm telling you, is brilliant. When you open that little door, it shows you where to put the tail in. It won't let you do it the wrong way. So when I put the tail in that door, all right, I can't do it the other way. It won't let me. There you go. And of course, I could turn this upside down, but the ribbon would still be wound the same way. There is a right and a wrong side to put it in. And there are red dots that you're going to see on the top that you will not see on the bottom. I'm putting it into my ribbon embroidery attachment. I know I'm going to see the red dots looking up toward the ceiling. And that is true of a lot of different things when you're working with the ribbon embroidery attachment. I'll just put this quickly back on there. And I'm going to put it back in. And so I'm putting it back in, and the tail of that is right in place. And then I snap it in place, and I'm going to turn it over. And usually I do this by having it in the box, but I'm going to try and do it like this to show you. So don't mind me if I'm a little awkward. So it goes right in here in the bottom little slot, and then it comes up the next slot up here. Just like that. And the main mistake you're going to make is trying to be too frugal and save ribbon. And that gets you in trouble all the time because it'll come out and then you're going to have to put it back in. So I like to make sure I've got a nice big slot. And then just before I start doing the embroidery, I'm going to pull it back in so there won't be any waste. Now, in the very center, there is a black wheel. Don't worry, Jamie, we're just getting started. I'm opening that wheel all the way, and that's a good habit to get into. The only time that I've heard people running into a challenge where they're not getting the ribbon centered, the stitching centered in the ribbon, it's because you don't tighten up this wheel. So I open up all the way. I put in the ribbon that's going to go. Let me see here if I might need to cut a new edge to it. You can see how easy that comes out. And I say that, but push it up a little bit with my hand. So there I've got the ribbon out like that. And then I'll pull myself a nice tail, make sure it's nice, not twisted. I like to leave at least 6 inches. You can leave a lot more than that because you're going to wind it back on, and it won't get wasted. So I promise you it'll be fine. Now you can put 2 ribbons together at the same time, and different size ribbons or the same size ribbon. The only thing at some point you want to make sure that it's not so thick that it can't come through. So when you're pulling it like this, you should be able to pull both ribbons and it move through easily. If it's not moving through relatively easily, it probably isn't going to work for you to do that. Now, the very last thing you're going to do, and I'm going to give you a close-up for this, is what you're going to do is you're going to turn that wheel so that it tightens up against the ribbon. All right. And you don't necessarily want it squished, but you do want it so it's going to, the outside edges are sitting right up against the inside there. Now, that becomes a little bit of an issue if you're using something like this, because the outside edges are fringe. So in a ribbon like this, you would ignore the fringe and you would bring the wheel so it was touching the inside edges of the ribbon, which would be like this, and let the fringe just sit there. The fringe is so soft and thin that it won't get in your way at all, but the ribbon itself will not be able to move side to side. That is the purpose of that wheel, is it stops the ribbon from moving left to right. And so that when the machine is stitching, it will always stitch straight down the center of the ribbon. And as it's going around curves, you will hear the motor run. It's going to be a little bit different, but it's not, you're going to get the best results. So if you've ever stitched anything with the ribbon embroidery attachment and didn't get the ribbon stitching down the center, that's the reason why, is that you didn't tighten this wheel. And as annoying as it is, that's pretty much the main reason and the only reason why you're going to have an issue with it not stitching where you want it to. Now we have our little micro USB port that we're going to plug in when we do that. But we're going to go, and I want to show you a few more samples first, if that's all right with you. And let me just pull this up. Now, some of you have seen this. I'm going to stand up. I couldn't put it on the table because it's too big. This is kind of what I call a work in progress. Now, when I started with this, in the very beginning that the octopus first came out, that was the design that I stitched first. And I stitched it on a ombre fabric that went from like the lighter blue turquoisey color into the darker color. And I had no idea what I was going to do with it. It was just, I love the octopus. Now you'll notice there is, in the octopus, let me pull my hand over here, there is fabric behind the octopus. When you look at the octopus in MySonet library, all you see is the outline stitching of where the ribbon embroidery is going to go. So I think that is the best trick or technique that I have to share with you, is how easy it is to add an applique fabric behind anything you want to do. Now, this was kind of a work in progress. I added the fish, and then all of this side over here, where you're looking over here, there is ribbon embroidery. Come over here like this. These were just leaves, like regular everyday leaves. And I used them as they were seaweed. And I used an organza ribbon that was about 1/4 of an inch wide. I kind of wished I'd used a thinner organza. And in this case, I used a different one. Another thing you might want to check is if you're working on an art quilt is before you actually go and iron anything on your quilts, and before you use something, is test it to see if the ribbon will melt. Because one of these, when I went to press something in place, it melted. So that was something that I always learned the hard way. It's amazing how that works. But after I did the seaweed, and then down here, I chose another floral design and used that as coral. to kind of mimic the coral that you're seeing over here. And I thought that turned out really cool too. But the scene wasn't full enough for me. So then in my Sonet embroidery, I made a squid. And they turned out pretty cute, I thought. And that was very simple. And I used this sheer netting that had some sparkle to it. And this part, some of it's freestanding and some of it's not. I kind of, some of it got stitched down as part of the design. So at that point, I put it together with the back, and then I quilted it, free motion. And basically, anytime I'm doing a quilt like this, I'll usually just do kind of straight, curvy lines. I added a few other different simple embroidery designs over here. And then on the outside edge over here, I couched down some yarn, and I used some of my fabric pencils to color it in to make it look like seaweed, because I didn't want both sides to have the same look to it. So it kind of gave it a completely different look. So after all that was done, I thought I still wanted to add some more. And so what I did was I got a fish that was in the MySonet library. And you can see that there are over here little fish that are there. And so what I did was on a puffy foam, I stitched out these fish in some different sizes. And puffy foam kind of gives it a little bit of a lift to it. And then afterwards, I use the stick and fuse on the back of it to kind of hold it in place. And they're not permanently done right now. I can lift them off. And because I haven't decided if this is the place that they're going to be. So right now, it's just a temporary stick. When I'm ready for them to be permanently living there, then I can fuse them with the iron. But I also will probably go around the very outside of the fish and stitch it like that. And for me, this is, you know, sometimes as quilters, especially if you've done a lot of applique, you're used to building a quilt like that, adding applique designs on top of other designs. But sometimes as a traditional quilter, if you're used to piecing a quilt, you don't always think of building a quilt from the background out. And so this was something that is a lot of fun. You can see I have a couple of the bigger fish up here. There's actually another one that is hanging around somewhere. He went for a swim somewhere. But it's a fun way of using our ribbon embroidery. So I'll show you a couple of more designs just so you can get an idea of the ribbon that I'm going to use. In this case, this was an elephant that I loved. I loved the detail that was in there. But what I wanted was to be able to, get the color behind there. And so this is the one that I used an 1/8" ribbon. And you can see it a little bit closer there. And what I think is really fun about this is look at the background fabric, the white fabric that you're seeing. That white fabric has got a painted finish to it. And you will find that in a lot of quilt stores that it has that painted finish on it. And when I saw that, I thought, well, this will be perfect, because as I color them in, what happened is the markers that I used, they absorb differently into the fabric. So where the paint was, it's much lighter, and where there was no paint, it was much darker. But this really got me excited about the possibilities from MySonet embroidery. Okay, so let's answer a few questions, all right? So what machines does this work on? So on the Pfaff line, the Creative Icon is the only machine that it works on. And then on the Husqvarna Viking line, there is the Appliques that can use the ribbon embroidery attachment. And let's see if I can move down in the questions a little bit. And right now, wait a second, let me see if I can scroll down here. Okay, sorry, I had to pull up the questions because I couldn't see the top ones anymore. So right now, you cannot buy ribbon embroidery designs except for the ones that are on the MySonet subscription at this time. But I've got to tell you, where we are right now with the MySonet embroidery and the MySonet subscription for the library, this is just the beginning, right? Lots of things are going to change. So I would just be patient, because I think there's going to be a lot of exciting things that'll come. And just be patient a little bit. I think that as we develop the MySonet library and the MySonet embroidery, that honestly, we're all going to be just amazed at where we're going to be, you know, a few months from now and a year from now. The time passes so fast. So I think it's something just to kind of keep in mind, that we've got lots of time. And just because we can't do something now doesn't mean that the same thing is going to be true in a while from now. So elephant, absolutely gorgeous. I loved him. Now, in this case, I'm going to, maybe I'll pull up my other camera. Oh, I'll do it like this, I guess. This was a ribbon embroidery design that I used a 1/2-inch satin ribbon. Now, the 1/2-inch satin ribbon looks like this. And the one that I used is fascinating because it's finished on both sides. And this one I did get off of the internet somewhere. I can't say where exactly. But when you're looking at the coloring, it's shiny on both sides. And so that's what I was thinking I was going to use. So when I did it on the butterfly, it didn't like it as much as I thought I was going to. And the reason for that was that the yellow stood out so bright that you didn't really get a nice feeling for the butterfly. It kind of broke it apart too much. So what I did was I took my fabric markers and I colored the yellow in orange. And it is, it worked. I think it's much better. It kind of held the design together. So yes, the ribbon embroidery attachment, if you're lucky to have a designer Applique or Applique 2 or an icon, then this ribbon embroidery attachment will work on all three of the machines, and they work interchangeably. So you can have an Applique and an icon and use the ribbon embroidery on both of them. And that's what I love about Pfaff, is that we really make it as easy as it possibly can be. And if you're looking for the best of all worlds, having an Applique 2 and the Creative Icon, absolutely the best of all worlds. So I know that there's some of you that are on here from our sister brand, but you need to look at the icons, because the Creative Icon and the Creative Icon 2, wait till you see the things we're going to be able to do with the Creative Icon 2. So lots of great possibilities there. So any other, let me just check and see. I'm going to change over to my samples, and I'm going to pull up another sample for you to look at here. And then I can refocus here. So this is the same ribbon, that ribbon design that I just used, right? The butterfly that I did, exactly the same design, but it looks completely different because here I did the whole design. And in this case, I put an outline first, an applique first, and I embroidered the ribbon on one side. And on the other side, I treated it like a collage, and I just brought in all kinds of fun flowers. Some of these flowers are three-dimensional. I don't know if you can see this. And they'll come up. You've got a ladybug that I've put on there. And I've just kind of built it. It's not finished being played with. Let's put it that. Every time I do something, I kind of think of it as a work in progress. So you can see there's quite a bit of difference between the exact same design and all the fun things you can do with it. Now let's look at, why don't we, Mary Joseph says she's got her Creative Icon 2 ordered. Well, you're going to love it. This ribbon embroidery attachment works with the Creative Icon and also the Creative Icon 2. So, but there is a new embellishing accessory that will be available with the Creative Icon 2, where you'll be able to sew on a lot more different varieties of yarn and also beads and so many more things. So make sure you look into that too. Okay, so on my screen, I'm going to switch to my computer. And we're just going to go look at my MySonet library for a moment so you can kind of see the kinds of designs that are there. And I'm going to open up. This is your basic MySonet account, when you were look to sign up for it or to find out more information about it, this will give you all the information about pricing and everything. But make sure to go in and talk to your dealer if you want to sign up for the MySonet embroidery or the library, because they have the ability to give you specials that you won't necessarily get online. But if you're just looking to try it for a month and see what it's all about, then by all means, give it a try, because you can cancel it at any time. Now, if I want to go to the library, I'm going up to the right side where the tools are, and this will bring me to MySonet embroidery library. Now, here you'll notice if you scroll down, there's a picture of the octopus. And what they're doing is they're bringing you creative ideas and ways of using it. You'll also see the lion down below. And there's a Valentine's design. You have the Swedish Santas. And so not only does it kind of give you an idea of what you can do, what new designs are there, but it's also kind of giving you a little bit of a creative idea of things you can do. My favorite thing, no matter what machine you have, I don't care, you know, whether you have a 3.0 or a 4.5 embroidery machine, these tips and hints that you will find here are valuable for everybody. And there's information about working with the metal hoops. Did you notice that they brought the bunnies back? So there's a pattern there to make these bunnies. And if you wanted to find out about them, you could just touch it and it would bring you all the patterns that you could use to make the bunny. So, but this is kind of like the main page where you get your information and your news. And then you've got tips and hints. You've got your favorites if you want to save some designs there. And I'm just going to go in over here to search ribbon embroidery designs. So I'm going to put in ribbon embroidery. If I'm lucky, I can spell properly. Attachment. And then when I press search, it will bring me all kinds of designs. Now, right now, there are well over 200 designs that are ribbon embroidery attachments, and they're adding more every day. This is those funky flowers that I was using. Look at this beautiful swan. I think I might do him next. And as you go down, you will see that there is something for everyone. There's the fish. I haven't shown you the fish. I'll show you the fish in a minute. And there's the tree. And that's how easy it is to get it. Now, when you choose the design, like say I wanted to do the tree right now, I could select it. It will tell me how much ribbon it's going to use. It will tell me the size. And it gives me all the information. And you could spend a lot of time looking at the designs. But at this point, if I was ready to stitch this out, I would go up here to the send button. And I could send it directly to my icon or to my computer. Now, if it's a ribbon embroidery design, I wouldn't send it to your computer. I would send it directly to your machine, because when it goes into the machine, to your computer right now, it will lose that information. But I expect that will change sometime in the future. So I'm just going to choose to send it to the creative icon. And now that design will be on my machine. It tells me it was sent. And then I can go and just start stitching it out. Now, somebody recognized some of the designs that are on there. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is show you how you can make an applique out of all of your designs. And because that really is the big question, right? And it is very, very simple to do that. I'm going to close this down, and I'm going to come back to the machine. All right. And there's my machine. There's the creative icon, and I've gotten a message that shows me that the design is there ready for me to load. And so what I'm going to do is say, okay. And then there's my design. It also gives me a message that says the ribbon embroidery design is loaded. And so I say, okay. And then there is my design. And I'm going to just change my square here. Now, when you look at this design, if you go up to to change the color, right? Up here, you'll notice that there is a marker beside the thread color that shows you it is a ribbon embroidery design. The way you can get to make an applique out of a ribbon embroidery design is first select it, and I'm going to touch duplicate. So this is duplicate here, and I make sure before I do that that the design is centered in the screen. So there it says 0, 0, and 0, 0, and then duplicate is right over here. So when I touch that, now I have two designs. It looks a little funny because they're not on top of each other. I'm going to center the second design. So now I have two designs that are exactly the same. What I'm going to do is I'm going to select the first design. I'm going to go up to layers, and I'm going to select the very first design. And then I'm going to go to the painter's palette to change the color of that first design. I'm going to select the first color, and I'm going to touch the painter's palette and choose a different color. It doesn't matter what color. When you choose the different color, what that does is it takes away the ribbon embroidery information. The first design is now not a ribbon embroidery design anymore. It is just a regular stitch out. So it will stitch out without making you put on the ribbon embroidery design. And it's at that point when you're stitching that out, you will lay a fabric underneath. And we'll talk about more of the different kinds of fabrics you can do. You will lay the fabric down and stitch the fabric in place. You'll cut close to the edge. And then when you're ready for the next color, you're going to put the ribbon embroidery attachment on. And that works extremely well for making your applique. Now, if you would like to reinforce the stitching, like when I was doing the octopus, I wanted to have a lot more heavier stitching because I was using a silk for the overlay. So I stitched the first color twice, and then I went to do the ribbon embroidery for the octopus. So I'm going to come back to the screen a little bit and show you some more, because I've got some fish to show you. There we go. So anytime you want to do something like this, you want to think about what you're using for your fabric, for your applique. Now, there are lots of different things you can use. You can use the glitter flex that you would use, you know, in a lot of the Kimberbell designs. It has a shininess that'll fuse to the t-shirt or fuse to whatever your design you're making. That doesn't ravel. It works perfect for appliques, and I'll show you an example of something like that. There's also things like Angelina fibers. This is Angelina fibers. They don't look like much when you pull them apart, but these are fusible. So if you lay some of these down on the table and you put a piece of fabric on top of it and you iron it, it creates a fused fabric that won't ravel. And it is just amazing what you can do with Angelina fibers. Now, you can also put a fabric underneath the Angelina fibers and put this on top. So with one of these fish that I was doing, this I used Angelina fibers. And so I was able to just freehand cut around the outside of it. I used Aqua Magic for the background. And I've got a couple of other examples here. This is obviously going to be another ocean scene that I'm working on. And I'm not sure what this is going to be right now. What I was doing was just making the fish design. And there's another fish design I'm going to use too. And then this one, this was the very first one I did. And it was done on white fabric. And I appliqued it underneath the fish. And then it was only white. So I thought, well, what am I going to do with that? It doesn't look very nice. So I just took some fabric pencils that are permanent and colored them in and just spritzed it with some water. And that kind of gave me a very different look too. So it's just so fun and creative, the things we can do. It's just a matter of thinking about how you want to use the design and what you want the finished product to look like. So Virginia's got the Creative Icon and Designer Epic. Well, you're all set. I hope you've got the ribbon embroidery attachment too, Virginia, because you're going to want that. Now, here is another example. This was one of the very first times I did the applique. It was a Christmas tree. And I put a fabric. I wasn't sure if it was going to stitch out or not well. I was kind of sorry I didn't use a little bit more interesting ribbon to go along with it, but it gave me the idea that I can do this kind of stuff. Here's a unicorn. And for that, I think it really does, you know, this was just something fun I was playing with. Now, I want to go back to the question about whether or not you can buy ribbon embroidery designs. While right now you can only get the ribbon embroidery designs that are in the MySonet library, it is so easy to make your own ribbon embroidery designs that I don't see any disadvantage. So before I finish today, I've got 10 minutes left. I am going to go back in because I want to show you how easy it is to add ribbon embroidery designs. I'll just show you my last couple of ones. This is a little baby, and he's got applique ribbon embroidery hair, and his shirt and his diaper I put white polar fleece behind to make him a little bit more three-dimensional. Here is the what do you call this guy? I made him into a little skirt, and the poodle's got ribbon embroidery for the main area here, but this is stitching. So you would do the stitching first. Always, for every single ribbon embroidery design, what they do is they have the ribbon embroidery be the very last thing that you're going to see. And then a couple more, and then I'll go back to the software for a second. So here I use the glitter flex for the bird, and I use the purple glittery ribbon for that. And then I've got some sheep. Here is a sheep that's done with a pique ribbon. The ribbon's got a little edge to it. And then I use the exact same design, but I didn't use ribbon. So for anybody that maybe there's some time you don't want to use the ribbon, you've got an idea. In this case, I wanted to not have the ribbon, so I changed the color, and it let me stitch it out. And the most ribbon embroidery designs look like quilt designs. So the back of this, it really just looks like a stippling stitch. So what I did was I put Minky on instead of the ribbon. And that's another completely different way that you can use it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch back to the software for a second and try and answer that question about making your own ribbon embroidery designs. So when I'm in here, if I wanted to make any design, any embroidery design, I don't care what it is, you can make your own ribbon embroidery designs very, very easily by, and let me go and I'll just get rid of these designs here. Let me turn this off here, and I could send it from here. I'm going to go and let's bring in another super design here. All right. So let's say I'm bringing in this flower, and I want to make this a ribbon embroidery design. So I'm going to bring it in here, and I would like to add ribbon, and I'm just going to move it over here and move this all over here so that I've got more room to work. So if I wanted to change this ordinary everyday embroidery into a ribbon embroidery design, I'm in MySonet embroidery. I'm going to go up to embellish at the top. I can go to draw a line, and I'm going to choose a freehand line. And let's say I choose pink. So now, and I'm going to keep the ribbon size at 5. So any place that I draw, it will add ribbon to. And I'm going to come around like this. And you can see, I'm not using my mouse. I'm not doing a particularly good job. I'm just bringing it around. And then when I let it go, I've got ribbon. And when I zoom in, you will be able to see the ribbon on top of the design. Now, you could choose, if you wanted to do both the stitching underneath and the ribbon. But now I want to go and make the center of this a ribbon embroidery design too. So I'm going to go back to draw a line, freehand line, and this time I'm going to choose orange and say, okay. And so I'm just going to start in the middle, and I'm just doing a little kind of spiral design here. And when I let it go, now I have a ribbon embroidery in my center of my flower. So this is something that you don't need to get a design from the library. you can make your own designs. If you have MySonet embroidery, the platinum version, you can make as many different ribbon embroidery designs, and it's not any more complicated than that. If I wanted to make the leaves have ribbon on it, I can go to freehand line, change the color, and then I can come here and I can come down the stem. I'll go up into the leaf and come up onto the other leaf. And when I let it go, I've got ribbon on the stem. This is the simplest thing that you could ever possibly do. And I bet you that the funniest thing about it is you just don't realize how easy it is until you try it. And so for those of you that have MySonet embroidery, and go in, and if you've got the ribbon embroidery attachment and you've got the, you know, one of the machines that it will work with, having the embroidery, MySonet embroidery, makes it so easy to create all your own designs. So I don't think you could have to worry about where you buy a design, because you can make them so easily. So does anybody have any questions? We're about ready to close down. I have so much more to show you, but I'll have to wait till next time. I hope you had fun. Oh, I'll show you my last thing. This is a scarf, a silk scarf that I'm making, because I thought I would see how long. So the ribbon that you see here, I started and I kept going and going and going. And I didn't even fill the ribbon embroidery attachment. It was still, all of this ribbon was with one loading of a design. So you can see how far you can get, right? And this is just a scarf that's, I'm not sure what material it is, but it's sheer, that I'm putting that design on that too. So the question is the ribbon embroidery attachment the same as the one that will? I don't see the end of that question, but if you can let me know what it is, I'll answer you. So a question is, if you create a design, can you still use it when you quit the subscription? If you have MySonet embroidery and you've created your own design, that design is yours to use. If it came from the library, then it would not open unless you had an active subscription. I hope that makes sense. But that's the nice thing about making your own designs, right? If you make your own designs, they're yours forever. And all you need to do is to be able to bring it up. Well, thanks, Penny. I'm glad you enjoyed it. And look for more. Remember, there are multiple new videos coming out for the ribbon attachment. Look for the one where I show you how to set it up, put it on the machine. I didn't want to repeat it too much here because it really is available. Right now, Mickey, the ribbon embroidery attachment on the Pfaff side is only available on the Creative Icon, and it will work on the Creative Icon too. And it also works on some of the Viking machines. So I hope that you have fun. I hope everybody that has MySonet embroidery goes and makes an embroidery design. You can always find me on my Facebook page as Karen Loves to Quilt and Sew, and I'll answer any other questions. And thank you, Jamie. Thank you, everybody, for joining me. And it was so much fun. So get excited. Give it a try. Bye.